Hello, everyone. I am Lexi. I'm your host for today's episode of Lexi's Book Nook, and this is a bonus episode for January. If you don't know what Lexi's Book Nook is, this is a podcast and BookTube account. So I will be discussing book club recommendations, Reese Witherspoon's book club picks, and some books on my TBR list. And I will go over those books, give a review, my thoughts, and some discussion questions. I tend to go over like 3 to 5 questions and answer them. This is a podcast that is available for free on Spotify, also free on YouTube, but with the benefit of $3 per month, you can also have this visual podcast in a sense. You can see me, my book nook, get inspiration for your book nook based on mine. I'm going to have more pictures, so you can be able to see that pretty soon. You can also see the cover art and books upcoming for the next episodes. For $3 per month, you can join my Patreon account, Lexi's Book Nook. You can also check out my website, lexisbooknook.com, or you can also watch these videos on YouTube. So you have lots of options, a lot of benefits. My podcast is also free on Spotify, but I highly recommend Patreon so you can see your own book nook, my own book nook, and get inspiration for yours. For today's episode, we will be going over The House in the Pines. This is a Reese Book Club pick for January of 2023. I will do Reese Book Club picks based on the last year. So I have gone over Honor by 30 Umbergar. This month I was able to get Reese's more recent book club pick. I might not be able to in future months because I know these books are very, very popular. So this is a bonus episode. I was able to get a hold of it. I was able to read it before the end of the month. We're going to be going over this book today. So with the benefit of Patreon and BookTube, you get to see the book art. And I am going to show this to you. So on BookTube and Patreon, you can see the book cover. It is basically a little cabin in the woods, hence the pines, with a picture of a key either in the front or in the back. Which one is it? So if you have Patreon and BookTube, you'll be able to see it and figure it out on your own. So we will go over this book. 7 years ago in high school, Maya, the main character, witnesses her best friend mysteriously drop dead in front of her abusive, manipulative ex-boyfriend. In the present time, which is the majority of the book, Maya is living with her loving boyfriend. However, she's hiding her Klonopin addiction from him. Her past comes back to haunt her when she watches a video in which another girl drops dead in front of Frank. Immersed in her past trauma, Maya heads back to her hometown without telling her boyfriend her plan to end Frank's intentions of killing possibly more women. I'm going to go over my thoughts first and then the discussion questions. But I thought that Reese's book club picks never disappoint, and The House in the Pines did not. This was a very intense and gripping story that I couldn't put down. I enjoyed it from beginning to end, having an unreliable narrator, Maya more human and down to earth, and this is because she's off her Klonopin addiction. It's like an antipsychotic medication, so it makes her memory very fuzzy. She can't recollect things, especially the days where Frank had this sort of power over her and her best friend and this woman who died in the video. She thinks that he has some sort of control over them, but she doesn't know what it is. And so when she's trying to describe this like power in a sense to the police, they don't believe her because she doesn't have any concrete evidence. So it's because of her memory and also because her mental state is not as stable as it could be based on her mental health issues. And she also relied on alcohol to mask her Klonopin addiction. So all of those factors make her unreliable, which makes this story a little more interesting. But I liked it. I think it makes Maya human. Not all of us are perfect. Not all of us don't have mental health conditions. Some of us have addictions, and it really resonates a person's brokenness and how our memories aren't as concrete as most characters in books really. When they retell stories, like how can they recall every detail? So I feel like Maya's like the most human broken person and more realistic character I've met in the story. I really liked the characters, except for Frank, of course, who's the antagonist. But I really liked the book overall. So that is the summary and my thoughts. I'm going to go over about 4 or 5 questions on this book. The first question is, Maya shies away from true intimacy by withholding important information from Dan, her current boyfriend. How does finally telling the truth about her alcohol dependence and Klonopin withdrawal, as well as Aubrey's death, her best friend, and her suspicions about Frank, change Maya's relationship with Dan? I think by finally opening and telling the truth to Dan, it improved their relationship. At first, it kind of seemed rocky because Dan realized that Maya wasn't 100% truthful to him during the relationship, and he probably had some trust issues with her, especially when she unexpectedly went back home for a week without giving him a good reason. But by finally telling him her issues, it made him realize that it was her way of showing she was trying to fix her problems without involving him. Although he didn't like it, he realized that she was trying to do it in her own way without burdening him, because he was also studying for his bar exam to be a lawyer. But when she finally told him the issues, he realized that she was finally willing to ask for help. And Dan was always willing to. He always wanted to help her the best way he could, like take care of her as any loving boyfriend would. And it got him re-involved in the relationship, and I think it really helped them out in the end. Second question, Dr. Barry's Maya's one-time therapist says, the unwell mind is rarely capable of recognizing its own illness. Dr. Barry also tells that the mind will try to explain what it doesn't understand by creating patterns. Is Maya a reliable narrator, even to herself? Did you have a falter in her perceptions? And I kind of already mentioned this in the summary, but no, Maya was not a reliable narrator. I think it's because of multiple factors, like I mentioned, her Klonopin addiction, withdrawal symptoms, lack of sleep, dependence on alcohol, and then like going back 7 years of her memories made all the memory problems even worse. So I think this could happen to anybody, but it really tested what I thought was real and what was not, because obviously we're not entirely 100% in a character's mind. We don't know everything. We know as much as the author is willing to give us. The third question, how is Frank able to read Maya and prey on her vulnerability? I think Maya was susceptible to Frank because she was able to tell that she easily loses herself to daydreaming. Maybe he also saw signs of her maybe not as strong mentally. Like he saw her signs of Klonopin and alcohol dependence, maybe based on her appearance, and maybe that made him attach himself to her, knowing that she easily becomes addicted to certain things. So that made her like mentality a little weaker. But I don't want to spoil too much about the book without you guys to read it. So like what that praying means and what he's doing to her, I don't want to spoil that. So I want you guys to read House of the Pines. But just know that as an antagonist and as a manipulative ex-boyfriend that maybe many girls can relate to, we can tell that he is going to leech off her in a certain way and has a certain control over her. The fourth question, inherited trauma is woven throughout Maya's story. Her father's violent death and Guatemala's tumultuous history. Her Aunt Lisa's mental illness, even the PCBs that poisoned the Housatonic River and Silver Lake. How does the author plant seeds of hope that it's possible to move beyond the damage of the past? I really like this question because I didn't really think about it until actually reading it. It seems that there aren't many seeds of hope in this book, but the author plants a few that makes it seem that some things can't be changed, but that's okay. And in other situations, it's an obstacle, but Maya can do something to change her fate. She can make a decision. She can make it better. For example, Maya can learn more about her heritage by visiting Guatemala with her mom and learn more about her father that she never met, and to learn more about her family and her heritage. She may also have mental health issues similar to her Aunt Lisa, but Maya, as opposed to her aunt, can still get help from a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and go to AA meetings as opposed to what her aunt may not want it to do. And also other things could be like maybe volunteering for an environmental group to help revitalize the lake, try to like get rid of these toxins, try to make a difference to the environment and bring back life. But overall, there are like a lot of obstacles that the author like threw in here and there, but they're things that can be improved, maybe not fixed, and that's fine. Like you can't really fix an alcohol dependence or drug addiction. It's always going to be a work in progress in those kind of scenarios. But in Maya's case, she had control over the things that were being brought up to her in her lifetime. And I'm going to close out with one more question. Were you surprised when you learned the truth about Frank's Cabin? And again, I'm not going to spoil anything because I really want you guys to read this book. But I was surprised about the truth of Frank's Cabin. Real or not real, he created it. Did he have help? Like, what's inside of it? What does it look like? What it represented to Maya and other women who loved him. But I really want my audience, I want you guys to read the book because there's so much more information I don't want to spoil. I don't like spoiling endings. I don't like spoiling stories. Otherwise, there wouldn't be this booktube or a podcast to talk about it. I want to bring a community in. So I really want you to buy a book. You can check it out on lexiesbooknook.com. That is LEXIES booknook.com. And I have a bookshop tab where you can buy your copy of The House in the Pines. It is an affiliate link, so I will make a portion of a commission based off your purchases. But you can also check out other podcast episodes on that website. They're also available on Spotify for free. But again, if you want to support this podcast, if you want to see my face, the book nook, get your own inspiration, the cover art of books, that is $3 per month on Patreon and or this booktube as well. I want to spread the word. I want to talk about books. I want you, my audience, to get involved. If you have any questions for me or book recommendations or additional discussion questions, my contact information is on my website, so please check it out and keep on reading.